How you doing, everybody, and welcome to 8 Bits in the Basement. Now, I've been living in France for the last 16 years, and only 2 years ago did I hear about this. Now, it does look like a doll or a doll's house or a tea set or something, judging by the box art, but it is in fact an Alice, a little copy of the Tandy MC 10 that was built here in France by Matra, a French company who built all kinds of things from bicycles to military weapons. And it was marketed by Hachette, who are a publishing company still going strong here in France. And when I saw one cheap on eBay, I snapped it up and I figured, why not make a little episode where we have a look at what's in the box, what it can do, and see what it's made up of. So we get to that right away, straight away, now. Okay, so setting the scene, 1983, Christmas morning, somewhere in France. We've just opened our Alice. What do we get inside in the box? Well, the first thing we're presented with is the Alice itself, which is exactly the same in shape and form as a Tandy MC 10. However, it's in nice red plastic. It's got a little Matra and Hachette silver sticker here, and it's got Alice embossed and painted in silver. Now the plastic is very, very good quality. You can feel it. And the keys are hard plastic and they seem to be spring loaded. You can tell when the key's been pressed. It's a much, much nicer experience than the dead flesh keyboard on the Spectrum 48K, for example. Now around the side here, we've got a very simple slide switch to turn the system on and off. Around the back, we have power in, we have TV out, we have an expansion port that only 2 expansions were ever made for, to my knowledge. There's a 16 kilobyte memory expansion, which was really recommended for this, because with 4K you couldn't do a whole lot. And there was also an expansion that would allow you to plug in an Atari DB9 joystick. Now, unfortunately, you couldn't use the 2 expansions at the same time, so to play any of the good games, you couldn't use a joystick on them if you had those 2 expansions. Around here, you've got a reset button. Then you've got a serial port to communicate with the outside world. And over here, you have got your cassette port so that you can save whatever you've written program-wise and load it back to a cassette. On the bottom then, we've got our label here telling us that it's Alice, a microcomputer by Matra and Hachette, and that it was made in France in Wilsenheim, which is in Department 68. I don't know how to pronounce that. On top of that, here we'll see that it's a model number 10125, and the serial number on this particular unit is 16732. And over here it tells us that it takes 10 volts, 50 hertz, 1.3 amps, and that it is a CCAM version and it uses a SCART lead. So there we go, that's pretty much the unit. It's a nice small little unit. The other things you find in the box are the SCART lead to connect it to the TV, this end to the computer, that to the TV. There is also the power brick here, which takes 220 volts AC and converts it to 10 volts AC, because although most of this works on 5 volts DC current, there is actually AC current required for the serial chip inside so that your serial port will work correctly. And finally, what you got in the box was this here. You've got your manual, which shares the same artwork as the box had, and it is a 190-page full color manual, if I can find a color picture in here somewhere to show you, that that explains the operation of the Alice computer and BASIC. And I can't find any color pictures on the inside. Here we go. There you go. Well, there's one. It's not very coloredy, but it explains how to use BASIC and all the rest. And really, you needed that because the idea behind this was it wasn't supplied with a tape recorder device. It wasn't supplied with any programs. And the idea was, if you wanted to play games or whatever, you had to write your own games on it. That was the idea behind this system when it was first brought out. That being said, the person who sold this computer to me gave me this cassette with it. So it's Jouer avec Alice 2, which is Play with Alice 2. And it contains 2 games, Le Mans, which is a car racing game, and also Squash. So why don't we hook it up to the TV here and we'll see what it can do. Okay, so you can imagine a Christmas morning, 1983, somewhere in France, and a young person has just gotten themselves a little Alice for Christmas and they want to use it straight away at 4 o'clock in the morning and they're screaming for their papa to come. So Papa arrives and he's like, oh God, I have to set up this damn thing. So is it all that hard for him to set up? Well, actually the answer is no, it's not at all, because the Alice here only has 2 connections on it. It has its power connection into the back, and it has a SCART lead going from it to the TV. And the beauty of these French systems with their SCART leads and their red, green, blue signals is that there's no messing around with VHF or UHF to tune in channels, or no channel 3 or 4 selection or any of that. As long as you're on the right channel on the TV, you flick the switch and you've got a crystal clean, clear image on screen for you. So this guy looks an awful lot like the MC10 would give you. You've got your microcolor basic 1, copyright 1982 Microsoft, and it's waiting for input. It's got a nice green background, the text there is in black, but the difference is that the border and the flashing cursor are a deep blue color. On the MC10, the border and the flashing cursor were black. So that's pretty much the only difference we have going on there between the two. Otherwise, they function in pretty much exactly the same way. So to see how much memory we have available to us, and I tell you we don't have a ton of it, we can do a print mem command. And here we see that we've got just over 3 kilobytes that we can use to write programs. Now this is fine if it's for a child learning the program in BASIC, because tapping in your little programs, you'll probably never fill up this. But if you want to play games and stuff like that, it is very, very limited. So yeah, so really you needed to have that 16 kilobyte memory expansion, but as it came, it didn't have that. It was just purely for programming with. So we'll have a little look at the keyboard here, and what this has in common with the Spectrum 48K and also the Acorn Electron and some other systems are keyboard shortcuts. So you'll see that you've got all the alphabetic keys here and numeric keys on top as usual, but above keys you've got commands like set, reset, read, restore, for, next, and common keywords that are used while programming BASIC. So we can access those on the fly by pressing Control, keeping it held down, and for example if I press G, it gives me if. So I can quickly type in programs. However, I'm not obliged to use those. I could type in F just with the I and F key and it would work exactly the same way. Now the other thing, if you make a mistake with this, it's not really obvious how to backspace. But in fact, all you need to do is Control and Q. And that's your little backspace key. So there you go. That's pretty much the Alice and the keyboard. But if you want to load programs to it, really the only option you have is tape recorder. So what we'll do is we'll try out these games here now, and allow me just a second to wire up a tape recorder to this, and we'll see how all that goes. Alright, so I'm after setting up my tape recorder here. I'm after putting a little cassette into it. So we'll start off and we'll try Le Mans, see what kind of a game that is. So this system works exactly the same as a color computer would. You can type C load and hit enter and it should load up a game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the keyboard shortcuts. I'm going to press Control and 4 and that gives me C load. I hit enter and I press play on tape. Now it'll take a little while because it has to go through the dead tape before it finds anything. And one quick cut later and we're after finding Le Mans. Now I have to hover over this thing because what's going to happen is it's going to load up a short portion of the program, and right here I have to type run. But I kind of have to be fast because this is giving me instructions on the game, but it's actually still loading. And if I didn't type run, the cassette would continue advancing, and by the time I typed run, the program would be passed and it wouldn't load up. So the reason for that was they had intended to put a relay into the Alice computer to do the automatic tape stop and start, but they didn't do that. I suppose it's a cost cutting exercise or something. But so you need to start and stop the tape and all that kind of thing yourself. But the games load up quite quick. So here we are. It's telling me that the commands I'll be using are Q, S, Z, and W to go to the left, the right, and to accelerate and to brake. Okay, so here it says, look, the program has been read in or has been loaded. Now you can stop the tape recorder. So there you go. You need to stop it. There's no automatic stuff on this. And it's asking me, am I a good driver? I'll say no, I'm not. Am I ready to start? So I am. Okay, so we'll hit enter, and here we are with this little game. So it's a very, very simple kind of little affair. and it's written in BASIC, but it's also using a little bit of machine code. But you've only got the 4 keys. It says boom when you crash into a wall, but you can accelerate, you can brake, and you can go to the left and the right. So this is pretty much the game. You're at Le Mans, I suppose, the car race, but there's actually no other car in this race. It's just you. That's it. But this is the kind of game that you'll be playing on this system with only 4 kilobytes of RAM. It's the type of game that really was given in magazines for people to type in themselves to play. You know, it's not much more advanced than that. So without a memory expansion, this is more or less what you were stuck with. But if I'm to be honest, I would say that if I had this computer in 1983, I would have been absolutely over the moon, even with a game like this for it. Yeah, so that is that little game. We'll have a quick look at the squash game and see what that looks like as well. Okay, so through the magic of video editing, here we are with squash loaded up. So again, the same keys, Q, S, Z, and W to go to the left, the right, and up and down. And it's telling me that I can stop the tape recorder once more. And if I want to know what comes next, press any key. So here we go. Do I want to play with 2 players? So I'd say no, I don't, because it's just me. So we press a key to start, and it looks a little bit like Pong, doesn't it? Oops. Only I can go back and forward, only I can't really do too much more than that. And we've got sound on this one. You can hear it beeping when I manage to hit the little ball in squash. So yeah, that's me with my racket, and I'm just beating the ball against the table. Yeah, so there you go. That's the type of game that you had with the Alice if you only had the 4K version of it. So there wasn't really a whole lot of interest, I suppose, when at the time it came out in 1983, there was already the likes of the Commodore 64 out there. There was also the Spectrum. There was no way it could have competed against any of those systems. So I think the next thing we'll do in this little video is we will take her apart, see what's on the inside of it, just to wrap up the whole thing. Now, so here's my Alice, Matra and Hachette little system all ready to be opened up, because I have removed all the screws and all the rest just beforehand. I took off the little sticker here and I retained it without actually damaging it, just to try and hang on to these little things intact. And well, the thing about it that surprised me is actually these screws that are holding it together, the 4 here, have a funny little kind of shape to them. They're not Phillips head screws. You need a special little screwdriver to open the damn things. So after removing those 4 screws, you can just pop up the top of the case. Although it's still not all that easy to do, because it's kind of a little bit clipped in place. There you go. Once it comes up, you need to be very careful, because the keyboard is kept in place with, as I'll show you, I've removed it, but with 2 of these little guys here. They're kind of plastic snappy guys that lift up like this. They lift up very, very easily, and you can remove the keyboard. And actually the little keyboard connectors are of very high quality. You'll see that they are actually wire inside in a piece of plastic, and they're individual wire strands that are good and solid. They're not like little finger membraney things. It's very well constructed, so they don't seem like they're going to break anytime soon. Now, anyway, once that has been done and you've removed that part of it, there is 1 screw right here at the back, right here, this little black number here, that has exactly the same type bit that it needs to be opened as the other 4 did, that is holding the keyboard down to the plastics here. So once you remove that, you'll need to get a little flathead screwdriver or something to gently prise up, because this keyboard is held in place just kind of tightly. There's 2 holes in the keyboard that lock in firmly to the little pegs here on the bottom of the plastics themselves, and it makes the keyboard very, very difficult to remove. So what I had to do was take a small little screwdriver and just gently prise like this. There we go, to open that out. And then you can lift this away normally. There we go. We can lift that away and we can slide it out from the front here. Right. Now, so that's that guy off. So you're presented with this here. Now you'll notice there's a metal plate on this, and this is soldered on the underside at 4 points. And around the other side, like the old Coco 2 had, there's one of these sheets that's held in place with these exact same little pins. These guys you can remove with your fingernails, or you can remove with a screwdriver quite easily just by prising them up. But there's 11 of them holding this metal-y kind of tinfoily backing plate to the PCB itself. And once you've removed that, you're presented with the backed PCB, which makes the camera go all green for some reason. Anyway, around the front here, like I said, there's this shield, and once you've removed the 4 solder points, you'll be able to lift this up away from the board as well. And that's pretty much all of it disassembled right there for you. Alright, so here we are with the Alice laid bare in front of us. So we can see that it was manufactured in April of '84, and somebody's after writing on it, on a little label, 2109, and also stamped on the label is 1209, whatever all that means. Now, any of you who know the Tandy MC10, this will look fairly familiar to you. However, there are a couple of big differences. I suppose the biggest difference of all is to do with the video circuitry around here. So what we have is, we've got a load of components inside this little heatsink here that's generating our CCAM SCART red, green, blue synchronous signal here, and it's composed of a load of transistors, a couple of resistors, a few capacitors, and there's also a variable capacitor in there, and it is getting all the information that it's turning into a TV signal from this chip here, which is the video chip, the MC6847P, the PAL version, and that's the chip that shows us everything that we see from this computer. Over here beside it, we've got a ROM chip. So this here's an 8 kilobyte ROM chip, and it contains Microsoft Basic and all the code that lets this little computer board know it exists and lets it interpret whatever input we give to it. Down here we have the 6803 processor, which really is running the whole show. And over here we have 2 RAM chips. We have two 2 kilobyte RAM chips, which gives us its extensive 4 kilobytes of RAM across the whole system. All the rest of the chips that you see here are logic chips, so they're providing glue logic to hold all this stuff together, make it all work together, but also these logic chips are controlling the RS-232, or the serial port that we have up here as well. And that is pretty much the system. I mean, as regards the major chips in it, we've also got a very large capacitor here for smoothing the voltage coming in. We've got a bridge rectifier here. We've got a voltage regulator here as well, which is an 8407. We've got our on-off switch. We have a crystal here that controls all the timings on the system. We have our 2 keyboard inputs, and well, everything that you see from around the back. The edge connector, the TV out, the reset button, serial port, and the cassette port. And that is pretty much the innards of this system. Now, so there you have it, everyone. Our little look at the Alice 4K is coming to a close. So a French computer modeled on an American computer, and pretty much exactly the same thing with a different TV output. However, it was kind of destined for failure, seen as the other more powerful computers like C64 and the Spectrum and whatnot were just on the horizon when it made its debut. But it's an interesting little computer to look at. Now, it will be appearing on the channel again in future because there are upgrades that can be done to it, mostly memory upgrades, both on the inside and on the outside, but they open up to us a whole plethora of other games and things that can be done on this system. So if you haven't already, subscribe, and that way you'll be notified of any of these new episodes that appear, but kind of bi-weekly or once a fortnight. So I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give us an old thumbs up. If you didn't, the old thumbs down button is right there beside it. And don't forget to leave a comment. Love getting the old comments, and I try to answer every comment that I get. So look, everybody, thank you very much for joining me for this old episode. We'll talk to you very, very soon again. And until then, salut et au revoir.